and welcome back to Arcadia FYI. I'm Christine Zito, your host of this wonderful show. I love this show, and I thank you for making it a success. I had no idea it'd be this great. So thank you to those that are listening. As we focus, we're going to be focused on community. Today I have a great show for you, okay, focusing on the city of Arcadia. I was born in Hollywood. I was born a star. Then I moved to Arcadia, and I've lived here, and then I moved to Walnut, and my dad, he actually grew up here and lived here all his life until he went home to Jesus. And furthermore, we're going to be talking about activities when they come up outside the city, because we're all one big happy family here in the San Gabriel Valley, and I want to invite other activities to come in. I want to thank our sponsors, Longo Toyota Lexus in El Monte. Say hi to Mike and Brooke. They are great people. I keep telling you to go out there and visit because they do more than just sell cars. Star 7 Financial with Francine Chu, one of the best financial advisors here in the city of Arcadia. The Santa Anita Park. Pete's going to be coming in, I think, at the end of September, beginning of October, right in there to talk about some of the things that are happening at the racetrack. The Le Meridien Hotel in Arcadia and Pasadena. We'll be talking with Gab. We're going to actually do a really cool tour of the hotel so you can see for yourself. All right. In saying all of that, I have sitting in front of me, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see this great man here. He came to America to live the American dream. But, of course, it did not come without struggles, okay? Every dream has a struggle. Today, he's the managing partner at the law offices of Paul P. Cheng and Associates, also known as PPRC Law. He is a doctor, and he is one of our councilmen on the city council here in the city of Arcadia. Councilman Paul Cheng, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I am so happy that you're here. All right, let's get to know you a little bit. From what I understand, you came to America in the 70s?
Correct. December 25th, 1977.
You were a gift.
America was a gift for my family. I was a baby, obviously. But my family still talks about eating their first Christmas dinner on an airplane and coming to America.
Well, tell me a little bit about your parents. They said that I was reading a little bit about missionaries. I guess some missionaries helped your family, the military.
Yeah, so, one of the blessings that we have about being across the world is having missionaries as well as service members go across the world. And, I as a kid, you ask your father random statements. And I remember I was a kid, I was like, when's the first time you saw a white person? That's what you say when you're a kid, right?
Yes.
Unfiltered. And he said, well, I was in China, and a Catholic father came, and he said, come to America. And so, we're so blessed as immigrants, as Asian Americans, because many of the reasons why we came, for those that didn't have TV, was having a missionary or having a U.S. service member hugging us, taking care of us, not knowing us.
And this is outside of America.
Outside of America. The story of the Asian American immigrant is one where we didn't know America, but we knew that there was a country that wanted immigrants to come, that told us that we had value. Yeah.
How do you, as an immigrant, see the American dream? What does that mean to you?
Well, when I first came to America, Vietnam War was, depending on who you talk to, ending or ended. Obviously, from the history books, it continued quite a bit. But I grew up in Orange County, and Orange County was a place where there were very few Asian people. So when I was growing up in the States, there was kind of this struggle where people that didn't look like you would tell you that you couldn't walk on the same sidewalk as them, while at the same time your parents were working very hard, and your best friends were of the same color of people that told you to get off the streets. And so, as a young American, really, that didn't look like other people, it was somewhat of a struggle. But I can be able to say that the first tuna melt I ever had on a muffin was with someone that didn't look like me. I remember, my neighbor, seeing him throw a softball with his daughter day after day after day, seeing a father committed, was not my father because he was working all the time, right?
What did your father do real fast?
Well, there were a lot of businesses. When we first came to the States, there were many, many different businesses. The one I remember was he had a motel. We would go there. He helped develop Valley Boulevard when in the San Gabriel Rosemead area when it was just dirt. So I saw him there. Yeah, I miss him a lot because, in my early 20s, he passed. He was a lot older. He was a lot older than me. He was born in 1930. And so, yeah.
Is your mom still walking with us?
Yes. My mom is still, she's still with me. She's getting older, and I hope I can have her for forever. Yeah, I'm very fortunate that my mom is, still able to talk to me. But she's definitely getting to a point now where her body is catching up with her. She was such a huge fire when she was young, kind of that immigrant mom, scary. And to see her now kind of just a fraction of what I remember her is.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And you're married?
I am.
How many years?
So, we kind of debate. So it was April 12th, 2012, when I went to the courthouse to get married. And then, but we got our documentation stamped Friday, April 13th, right? And so it was...
Nothing scary.
We always laugh about that. We always laugh about that in terms of just the dates and the times and, across any country, these numbers are all bad.
How did you meet your wife?
Yeah, so she is...
and what's her name?
Aini.
Aini, that's right. And how did you meet?
We were introduced by, a friend, this person named Andrew, who's always linking up different people. And, she works as a news anchor at one of the Chinese television stations. That's how I met her. And, she was... So
you get to hide behind a star, huh?
I know. A lot of people don't realize that she's much more famous, if being famous on city council can be called famous, but she's much more famous than I am. So when she broadcasts in North and South America, the Western Hemisphere. So you'll have millions of people watching her.
Was it love at first sight when you saw her walk? There.
No, it's funny because, I did see somebody. She was super pretty, super beautiful. She grew up in Japan. She's from China, grew up in Japan, so she's not outside of her job this bubbly person. And I thought it was her. But then when she got done up as kind of the news anchor, that's when she came. And I was like, oh, no, I don't, because she looks so much older than I was. And she's a lot younger than I am. And I was like, who is this person? But we ended up just continuing to talk. She's been such a blessing in my life. I really thank God that I'm allowed to be with her. She allows me to be with her.
She's a very sweet lady.
She definitely, because she's so introverted, people don't realize at home we don't really talk. And so she speaks more when she's trying to be a bright person with me. We don't really have that much conversation. She's very introverted, very quiet.
So what do you
person.
guys do? Just stare at each other over dinner and then read each other's minds?
There have been many days like that. And it's not a negative thing. It's just her personality she's just very quiet. She doesn't like
wait. You got a woman that's quiet and she listens and you do all the talking? This is really backwards, Councilman Paul.
No, she's just very, because typically like couples, they like to gossip about people. They like to just chat, right? And so we won't be, she doesn't gossip about people. So usually when she speaks, I'm very attentive because it's pretty serious.
Oh.
And I think it's her upbringing of, in Japan, you don't want to impact other people's lives, which includes me. So if she's speaking, it typically means that it's a pretty serious issue, and she wouldn't bring it up unless she could resolve it.
That's a very wise lady.
Yeah.
Maybe I should hang out with her and learn how to be wise in. I don't know. You know me. I talk a lot.
Yeah.
I'll just say it.
No, me too.
Talk a lot. I love it. And well, do you have any kids? You guys?
No kids. We did have a baby once, and unfortunately, we lost our child.
I am so sorry. I did not know that.
Yeah. So kind of changed our relationship, obviously in many ways. I didn't realize, at least as a guy, you don't realize how these things could have such a deep trauma and an impact on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. Okay. Let's get into.
Sure.
What are you most passionate about here in the city of Arcadia?
Yeah. Most passionate, there's just going to be several things. I believe that we have to support our city staff. When I first got on council, there was a lot of turnover. In some departments, it was 35% turnover. And so we are a service city, meaning that a majority of our expenses are our staff. But at the same time, you kind of wonder, are we a destination city or are we a transition city? We're a destination city, right? People save and they work 3 to 4 jobs to come into the city of Arcadia. And the question is why? And ultimately, it's the staff that responds to emails quickly. They have an internal requirement. Internal. If there's an email, it doesn't matter if you're off. It's 15 minutes response. So I had a staff member tell me she was at the ocean and she couldn't even keep her eyes on her kids that are in the ocean because she needs to make sure she's responding to emails. And so the question is, if you have staff that have such a high standard, and you have our residents that come into our city that have an equally high standard, and you begin to ask yourself, what is it that makes Arcadia so much different than other cities? It's really our city staff that make it happen. I mean, if you call 911, the goal is 2 minutes. 5 minutes is unacceptable. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you're in other cities and you call 911 for a car accident, you're not going to get a response. You may get an email, a text message, or no response at all.
Well, okay, so now that you brought up dialing 911, I think from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the 911 calls are basically for the homeless. So how does the city council address that, or is that a misunderstanding? Yeah,
so the 911 calls are going to be distributed across many different issues, from emergency and non-emergency. And everybody has dealt with homelessness and focused on homelessness in a vastly different way. But we've moved the ball forward, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I desired to do was to retain the best and to recruit the best. We used to have eight police officers throughout the city. You had 5 for each district, sometimes 1 floater car, sometimes up to 3 floater cars, some dealing with traffic. Now we could be down to as little as 4.
For each district?
For across the city.
Oh, wow. So how you guys are handling safety?
So dealing with homelessness is not as easy when you aren't able to retain and recruit, when you have essentially department turnover that is very significant. And so homelessness is a complicated issue. There is not one council member, 0, in my opinion, that says, you know what, we're okay with homelessness. We would just love homeless people to be walking around and to essentially, many of them that have mental health issues,
yes,
to be walking around the city. I went to the gas station, so I was waiting for you, and I said, I'm just going to put in gas. Because I thought about my wife. My wife would never allow gas to get into the little red thing that ends up popping up. So I'm like, okay, in homage to my wife, I'm going to go put in gas, half tank of gas. And so I was there, and essentially I saw homeless people congregated at that gas station.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't feel good at all, because outside of this kind of downtown Arcadia area, you don't really see that. I mean, the reality is they are congregated near this transit stop, and they float down from transit.
It's because of the metro. They
That's
come down
correct.
here, and I'm in downtown Arcadia, and I'm walking distance,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't walk to work as much just because of what you just said.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
Look, we have to be very frank, is that, the definition of homelessness, or the definition of having unhoused, or however you want to say it, in our city, it is not acceptable. Right? It doesn't matter that the numbers have fallen. It doesn't matter that, used to be at 3 digits, now it's at 2 digits, and at times in a point in time count, it's 36. But then when it goes to LA County and comes back, it's 100.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter, right? What matters is, can we be able to move the ball forward about the individuals that are here?
Can we?
We can. We have. Actually, if you go to our city staff and you have real authentic non-soundbite conversations with them, we actually have 99% doing 99% more than other cities. See what had happened was in 2021 there was a big fight over, are we going to build shelters in our city?
Yes.
And so publicly, part of the city council was saying shelters are to help them. But in study sessions that people don't go to, that are many times not recorded but are public, they were saying, if we build shelters, we can eject them. We could run them out of our city. And that was the goal. Now, whether we are building it out of kindness, or whether we are building it because we seek to eject them from our city and push them to other cities, the goal is Arcadians are not okay with the unhoused and the homeless within our city.
I thought the shelters, are we talking about the tiny homes?
Correct.
issue? Okay, so from what I understood, that the tiny homes, the shelters, were to be able to give assistance to the homeless. I have learned from just being in my career,
Yep.
being in radio for many, many, many years, a talk show producer, was that homelessness, it's a funny issue. I have a heart for them. Sometimes I just don't know what to do, because some of them are there not by choice. And those are the ones that want help. And then you got those that don't want the help. They just want to be homeless. Then you have those with the mental issues.
Yep.
So with the sheltering, that's interesting. That I've never heard that aspect, that someone would build housing just to eject them.
Yeah, so the rule is that if you have at that time, if you have a specific amount of housing, some council members were looking at 20, some council members were looking at 100, this very vague kind of moving target that was occurring. If they didn't go into a shelter, you could eject them. You could arrest them.
Oh, I see. Those are the people that didn't want the shelters.
And maybe I'm not being clear.
Okay.
When I use the word ejectment, I'm using the word arrest.
Okay.
right? So if they don't go into a shelter,
Gotcha.
you can arrest them,
Okay.
right? And so the people that were supporting shelters, in part, it was kind of a multi-pronged type of statement, which is we're really helping them. Wink, wink. They're not going to be in our city if they don't get into a shelter. Wink, wink. And so the wink, wink that I saw and that I see on city councils or really any type of body is that every position is multifaceted with layers of positions within them. And the questions that we need to do as a city council is whether we agree with them, whether we agree with ourselves or not, how do we move the ball forward?
Well, I think too with the shelters, I was conflicted. I liked them because it gave help, but also too it would bring more people in, more homeless people in, and then it became like a safety issue. So I think there was a conversation amongst residents about that, and then it just ended up falling off. Was it rejected altogether?
No. So in 2021, what I did is I presented to the city council what's considered a 5-point plan, which forms the foundation in some ways of our homeless plan for the city, which is to get an authentic count, which is to see if we can be able to work with other cities. And fortunately at that time, our council supported it. And it was, every council member supported it. And that's what I've tried to do, being on city council, is to try to incrementally move things forward. I understand from residents that may not be at city council all the time, watching every meeting, reading every staff report, that it's not exciting, right? It's not exciting because essentially they want to wake up and see no homeless in our area, which I understand. But we were able, from the 5-point plan, to hire 7-day-a-week staff members that can be able to go out and work with homeless people that want shelters, that want to be in shelters.
Right.
And half of the people that we've met have wanted it. Another reason why I presented that issue, and to kind of say, hey, look, sheltering, whether it's for one purpose or another purpose, instead of saying that you're just a bad person for wanting sheltering for whatever reason and creating kind of an enemy, right, creating a devil, is to be able to say your ideas aren't bad ideas. It's an idea that maybe we can look at for the future. And that's what I've tried to do. I may not be good at it, but look, I'm in a profession. Earlier you said I was a physician. I'm an attorney, but I am in a profession where you want to create an enemy. You want to create evil on the other side. A person even has 1 degree of separation from you. They are not wrong, but I'm going to burn down your house. And people take that energy and they bring it on city council. And I've realized even in the practice of law, it does not work. Screaming and yelling at somebody and calling them stupid and calling them names may be the correct soundbite, but it doesn't move the ball forward. The city manager, Dominic, an excellent person, told me when I first got on council, you have to count to 3. I'm like, what does that mean? He said, you're not a king. You're not. You may feel like it, but you're not. And if you can't count to 3 and understand that one day you're not going to be in the 3, then what you need to do is to be gracious and kind to everyone on city council. And even when you disagree with someone, even when it's in your eyes, like you can see me as I'm speaking, as I have all this historical data that makes me mad, you need to be calm.
How do you handle? This is a question for me. How do you handle the dissension among the city council? today with all the different personalities, and then some, I mean, how do you deal with the discord?
Well, what I try to do is I'm always early to council meetings, and I don't do it for them. I do it for myself. Is I go up to each chair. I'm not a religious person, but I grew up in a religious family. I pray over each chair. I ask God to please give them wisdom. I do it more for me is because if I pray for somebody, then I'm invested at least in their success, that I've touched the chair, I've raised my hand, I prayed for them, and then I play Beatles music. So if you come to city council meeting, I to my understanding, I'm the first person that has played great music throughout the chamber, and I do it so that there's a vibe and an energy of excitement and thoughtfulness from different music genres, but really kind of that Beatle-esque exciting. But every record they have is a different vibe and an energy, but all very deep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Prayer in the Beatles song, Hard Day Night, Drive My Car. Well, I have to ask you. What is your favorite Beatle? Okay, go ahead.
All right,
I'm sorry.
So,
you pray. That is so. But I have to say that is so cool. I don't even have the words to say how sweet that is that you pray over each of those prayers, Councilman Paul.
Well, I think I have to, because sometimes the statements that are made, are through a lot of pain. Look, it's kind of odd is that as soon as the shining lights occur, look, council meetings, I think we have maybe 100 people watching it. Maybe it'll get redistributed, and maybe my wife will watch it another 50 times. So it'll be 150, and that's it. But for whatever reason, when the lights begin to shine, there is so much pressure that ends up occurring, and you want to say the right things, and you want to do the right things, that I think what ends up happening is you begin to get into a survival mode of when you were a child. And so the punching that ends up occurring that I see is how you survived as a child. And many times you were able to conquer something by standing up for what you believe is against an evil person. And so you say things that are very harsh. But unfortunately, when that ends up occurring is those words cannot be taken back. As a child, you may have survived it, but as an adult, you're constantly reminded, man, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that, this person has, is beholden to another person. I shouldn't say that they're ridiculous or they're stupid. I shouldn't poke at their family. These are all things that, fortunately, when I got on council, I took the advice of my city manager very, very seriously, because I didn't know. I was outside of my element. And, some people don't know Dominic. He's like this 6'4", super good-looking guy, very well-spoken. So he's not just good-looking, but very well-spoken, right? He has that almost Yoda-esque type of feeling where, at least for a moment, you're going to take what he says extremely seriously. But I took his worldview and his thought and his experience, being that he's a multi-generational city manager. His father was a city manager, and he would explain, from his father's standpoint, his brother's a city manager.
I was just going to say.
Right, all the way to him, is that I've taken his advice very seriously. Even when I disagreed with him, I would default, unless I said, no, 100%, he's absolutely wrong. But he has the historical data to be able to understand that, when you say those things, it does not help the situation. And so, for example, when I presented that 5-point plan, people online were cursing at me. I've had council members in front of city staff put their finger in my face, call me the F word, all these really intense, feelings, right? And the city manager, when I talk to him, he typically says, well, you can go down that route, but to what end? I mean, he doesn't say it, but he's really asking you, what is the end goal? And so I think what he's saying is, what do you really want? What is it that you really don't want? Add those together and say, are you really going to be saying that? Are you really going to be doing that? Right? What is it that I want? For example, with sheltering, what do I really want? Well, I want to end homelessness. Period. Full stop. Every council member. What is it that I really don't want? I don't want this issue to be an issue that I can never talk to another council member or council members. And then add it together and say, are you going to curse back? Are you going to point your finger in their face back? What point does it have for people that, for example, well, people that support me don't like certain people. Okay, so therefore, that's what you're going to do? This is just an example.
Wow, that is... Yeah, some deep stuff. To see you emotionally involved in who you are on the council is pretty amazing, Councilman Paul. I mean, because to bring up... It is true. I mean, we're human beings.
Sure.
And we all have a past. Mm-hmm. And to bring up childhood type of struggles, mm-hmm. And then to have that to be brought up and remembered as being on the city council or involved in an emotional aspect of the city council during the meetings, that's pretty deep. I mean, that really puts you on a completely different level that you really do feel. You are a feeling man. I mean, that is my opinion. I mean, people might think, Christine, you're really, but I have to point that out. And plus, for you to see that you're shadowing someone like I love Dominic. Mm-hmm. He's a and I say that in a way where I knew I got to meet Dominic before I knew he was city manager, and he was just a neat guy. He was just a very approachable man. And then when I met him at one of the chamber events, I'm all like, hey, wait a minute, you're city manager? And he was just humble man.
70% of the time, he won't agree with me. I mean, it takes phone calls, it takes mentorship. I mean, look, you talked about being a feeling person. I'm a human being too, right? I mean, when someone says something that's inappropriate, or does things that I think are truly unhinged, it makes me want to be even more unhinged, because in litigation, sometimes it's just people, who's going to top each other. And for city council, it feels like that too, right? Yeah. Is that if you're going to mess with me, I'm really going to take you out. So therefore, you got to be under me. But counting to three, see, this is so critical, is that if your goal is to count to three, there are going to be times when you're in the minority and you need the support of the majority. And they can stop you at any time. It could be the greatest idea in the world. And Dominic reminded me of that. He said, being in the majority doesn't happen throughout all of your council. I've been in the minority before, so I can understand how that feels. But I didn't understand that because when you first get on council, there's a wave of excitement and people that come out of the woodworks and people that didn't want to support you, but now are your biggest supporters, and you're like, oh, wow. And you think that you're someone special. No, you're not supposed to be special. You're supposed to actually blend into the background. Your goal as a council member is to recognize and support the people that make a huge difference in our city. City staff, first responders, many of our seniors that didn't walk away from our city when the demographic changed. You're supposed to, at the end of the day, hopefully, nobody will remember you, but they'll remember them. That should be your true goal. If your goal, for example, which everybody wants to do, without me, this city will burn down. Basically, what you're basically saying is, nobody else matters but you. And that's so unfortunate, because we do get that energy on council. And I'm not saying that I've never wanted to have that energy, because you see other council members in other cities, and the more they're, outlandish, and the more that they get up, and the more they scream, and the more they do all that, they seem to have even more support, and they seem to get the most attention. But what happens after they leave? Nobody remembers them. What they remember are all of these old battles and scars, and they don't know where it started.
Yeah, and see, I would always think that the goal of any council of a city, as they oversee the city, is the well-being of the residents. And those, with us living here, and we still have some time. One of the things I wanted to ask you that is probably more my little gem is the affordable housing.
Okay.
Affordable housing, you guys did. I was there at that council meeting when
Good.
you guys voted. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you guys voted on, I was all like, yes. And is it starting to move that way where I can actually go and move out of my apartment that I'm in now and actually go to another apartment and actually afford it?
Well, it depends on income, right? And so the affordable housing component for true affordable housing, it has a 3-tier level. So to qualify for it, you would have to be fairly low income, and likely I don't think that you would qualify.
Oh man, I wanted the penthouse on top.
Yeah.
At for the Ford Yugo car price.
Yeah, but it's going to, I think, bring in a more well-rounded city, which I think is the goal. The fight against it was that it would bring unhoused plus if they got $300 a month, right? I don't, of course, we're not going to know until it happens.
Right.
But I think that the goal of the state is to have more housing. And, this is what I have to say, since we're talking about just different energies, is I don't believe that even people that I disagree with or that I've met here or other cities, nobody's evil. Evil elected officials where they're truly evil, I think is very rare. I do think that when they have a lofty goal, the logistics and the consequences are very, very difficult. So, for example, when we have affordable housing, for example, with all the laws that are passed, many of them eliminate local control. And so in eliminating local control, it makes it that we have to almost be a rubber stamp when it comes to housing. And that's very dangerous, because a city traditionally should have areas where they have apartments and condos, more dense housing, and then you're going to have single-family residences where there's another group of housing.
Right.
But for example, based upon, for example, we used to have, I think it's Coco's on Michelinda and Colorado Boulevard. What about if they suddenly wanted to put a multi-story, as high as you want in the sky, housing? No ceiling limits, no parking restrictions, and the city council has to rubber stamp it. We haven't seen it, but the reality is those are the laws that are being passed. So you're going to have essentially single-family residences, and then you suddenly have this, people talk about mansions. That would be more than a mansion blocking out the sky, and that's what happens when you relinquish local control. I believe that if they wanted to have more development, which I understand, more housing, more supply, they should allow local control, and when we don't do it, then they can sue us. But when you have a city council across Southern California that are basically saying, please allow us to serve our residents, because we're on the ground. We know what our residents need. We are staring at our city maps.
Is the state, from what I understand, the state didn't they, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I just read this in the newspaper. Well, actually, I read it on the internet, and everything on the internet is true. So, California did put restrictions. You guys have to have some type of affordable housing.
Yes.
And how do you guys regulate that?
Yeah, so basically we have a housing element. Our housing element that we have to present every 8 years, we have to go to the state of California and say, this is what we're going to do. And then they're going to come back and they're going to say, we agree, we disagree, or we would agree if you would amend. Right? And so that, I think, is understandable, because the housing element basically says, when it comes back to you, you have this goal that we give you. You can disagree with our goal. If you do, you can bring it up with the judge. If you accept this housing quantity of homes or residences that need to be built, then you need to give us a plan. So if a developer comes up to you, you will approve that plan. That actually makes total sense.
Well, how many more people can you fit in Arcadia? Just this morning, I heard from Superintendent David, Dr. V.
Okay.
9,000 kids in the Arcadia School District started school today.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, 9,000.
Yeah.
How many more people can we fit in Arcadia? I mean, is there a limit? Is there a law, or is the state saying you just have to put all these people somewhere?
Well, I believe that the 3,000 goal that we have, residences in the city of Arcadia, if it's built well, can be developed in downtown Arcadia, as well as the Las Tunas Live Oak corridor.
Yes, okay. I know what you're talking about.
And so I believe if we do that and we develop, then it will create a vibrant area.
Well, yeah, pretty soon we're going to be building apartments above the shops of Santa Anita.
That's what people have been talking about, and laws were passed to say that if you have commercial businesses on the ground floor, you're allowed to build on top of them.
Yeah, Mama, I was just like, well, they do that in New York.
They do. It's a very mixed use. I mean, everybody across the world does mixed use, apart from really Southern California, right? Because we have our land is so spread out.
Yeah.
But I do think that we're at a point where, we're actually at a point where we don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And so, again, Arcadia has always been about housing rights, meaning that our property rights are valuable and don't affect our property rights. And so I believe that that's a good, correct view, with obviously some gentle pushbacks back and forth. But now with the state and the rules that are coming down, with people that don't live in our community, that literally would just desire to live and die in Sacramento, to have power, which I totally understand, but keep it there. When you're telling us, whether it's Monrovia, Arcadia, any of our cities, that I don't care what you think, like, housing is the most critical. So you can build it up to the sky. You can fill 3,000 units up to the sky. That's the rule. That's an extreme statement. It's not true.
I hope we don't see that type of skyrise of apartments here in Arcadia. Do you think it's going to...
I do, if we do not have the people in Sacramento, doesn't matter which party you belong to, that doesn't understand property rights.
Do we need to be careful who we're voting into Sacramento here on the local area?
I think so. I mean, we have a supermajority in, we talk about Congress, right, where it's Republican, Republican, Republican. But the reality is in California, we have Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. But it's not just right on a 50-49, if someone's sick, then the vote turns. No, it's a supermajority.
Yeah.
And I would say this even if it was in a state where it was majority Republican, is that I've enjoyed being on city council because many times I've literally just been 3-2, 2-3, literally back and forth. That is where incremental movement occurs. And I understand that people say you have to have political strength and political will, which I understand what that statement means. It means that when you're in the majority, you crush the other side.
Yes. Yeah.
But in doing that, it doesn't make it better because your decisions are going to be extreme.
Yeah, well, it does. Oh my gosh, now you're going to get me on a stop. Okay, well, yeah, I agree with that. I'm just going to say it like that just from my experience. I wanted to talk to you about ADUs, but I will save that for another time.
Sure.
I do want to get to questions I got from Facebook and my email. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So, okay, here's one from Kevin. I am not going to say any last names. And again, I want to say to everybody, I'm only going to ask the questions that are relevant to the issues here in the city of Arcadia or comments on, within the city of Arcadia. Okay. So here's one from Kevin.
Sure.
When are we going to reopen Wilderness Park?
We would love to.
All
right.
I mean, I ride my bike up there, so
The problem is that we have other agencies that come before us. Look, when Wilderness Park, when the rains came, the council was very good about going to see what was there. And we're talking about 20 feet of mud. We're talking about the museum that is covered in mud. There's a museum up there. A lot of people don't really know Wilderness Park unless you stumble across it or you're part of the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. But it's not anywhere near where it could be safe. So when other agencies that are above us come in, the rule is you can't come in until we're done. And so unfortunately, we're in a situation where they're still hauling out the mud. If you go, which I've gone again, there's a huge conveyor belt where mud is traveling and trying to get out. But you can't even get in. Even the bridge you can't cross in safely across a bridge. So you go up.
Yeah,
you
I
you
know,
go up,
yeah.
you go down.
Yes.
And so even there's a last bridge that's not even safe. And so
are we looking at a couple of years? You just don't know.
I think it's going to be within the next 2 years if there are not more rain.
Oh, okay.
Right? And people up north love Wilderness Park because nobody really knows it unless you live in the city. Arcadia is so unique in the sense that you can have literally Big Bear-like living, Big Bear-like feeling, and 3 minutes later, you're at the mall. 3 minutes.
I know that's one of the things. If it's a kept secret, we should be keeping it secret.
Yeah.
So everybody who's listening to this, okay, Wilderness Park will be open soon. So, all right. So there are some questions here we already addressed. One of them is Oris wanted to know about the change of price and rent. Okay, so. Does the city of Arcadia have any control of rent control and how high a landlord or property management can raise the rent here in the city of Arcadia?
No, but the law is that, look, cities can create their own rent control, but you also have to realize the city of Arcadia has always been about free market, right? That's always been kind of the history of Arcadia. And when I talk about free market, when I was young and I was growing up in America, they always talked about free market. They said that's what makes America great, right?
Yes.
Is that
except for high rent.
Yeah. When government comes in, well, you didn't bring up this issue, but it is very interesting. On council, yes, I'm the most conservative, but I am Asian. And Asian people, particularly Chinese people from China, although I'm not, are warning Americans. They have seen this occur in their country, where government becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only thing that's left is government and big business. The Chinese people are warning Americans that we have to be careful, is that if every single day the government gets bigger, every single day you're dependent on less free market, more government control, there is going to be a line that you cannot cross, which you are so dependent on the government for survival, or big businesses like Amazon. Everybody else is gone.
Well, doesn't China, did they have a free market?
That's when everything began to boom, when they decided to go toward free market. You know, when I first went to China and I was very young, there was a lady, I saw her, she was like sweeping the floor. But she's sweeping where there's no dust. And the question I finally asked her is, well, I didn't know if she was crazy or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I said, but there's no dust there. She said, but you don't understand. I need government. If I don't sweep and act like there's dust there and I stop, I don't have anywhere to go.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
And so that's the question that we have is, what has been more beneficial for America? Look, when I grew up in the 80s, and I'm a Californian, everybody was excited to wake up and work. They loved it. The eyes that they have. It's almost like, when you go to Vegas and everybody in Vegas, they have those eyes and you think, oh, those are just gambler eyes. They're just excited.
Yes.
They talk about their state. They love everything that's going on. They want to tell you what they're doing on the weekend. In 2025, as a Californian, are you waking up excited about the state? Or are you like, man, what's going on? Doesn't matter what party you are. We are tired. We are tired because the government has gotten too big. And we have to ask ourselves, in such a big government situation, which I'm not saying government should not be involved, but the question is, what's happening to our free market? Look, going back earlier to what we talked about, if we as a city council are just rubber stamping, isn't that the epitome of just big government? Where we can't be able to say, I don't know about building 400 condos. What about the traffic? What about the parking? What about the electricity? No, I'm sorry. You just have to rubber stamp it. That's the concern that we have. We need to ensure that we need to preserve our free market, because the preservation of free market, who it benefits? Small business. When I grew up in California, it was all about small business. All about small business. I understand that the internet had not been developed, or maybe it was, but we didn't know about it. But that's a huge concern that's going to impact all of us.
I think so too. And I think with the rise of artificial intelligence, the way technology is moving, I think we're going to see a lot of difference in how people approach the job market, the housing market. Gosh, there are so many things I want to talk to you about. There's only one small thing
Sure.
that I want to bring up, because when I went on Facebook and the emails that I've gotten and the responses I got from Facebook, and I know I'm jumping around without ending a conversation here or different subjects.
It's okay.
Is one of the, I didn't expect this, but it was brought up, the whole thing about the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
And that whole situation, all the fallout of that chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was to ask you about it, and the money that was involved in, I'm going to let you address that issue about why people are looking to you as, that's why the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce dissolved.
Yeah, I was a board member. Well, when it dissolved, I was not a board member, but when I was a board member, first of all, the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce is something that really came out of the ground again through a person by the name of Sandy Roscoe. Rudy Kasuma, and she always mentions somebody else, but I always kind of don't know whether that person was part of that kind of restarting of that energy. And what ended up happening is that there was a vendor that we used consistently that was a board member. And eventually there was a reconciliation issue where the board member wasn't reconciling his services with the Chamber of Commerce. Half of the board felt at that time that it was possibly an embezzlement issue. The other half of the board obviously said it was not, right? That this is a vendor that we've always used. He's part of the foundation of our chamber. And there was massive infighting that ended up occurring, which was the first time, at least being part of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, as well as being part of the board, that I could see. So what I pushed, and what I do on council as well, is when I see kind of two warring factions, is how can we be able to move the ball forward? My desire at the time was for it not to become public, for it to be resolved internally, in-house, and for us to kind of continue that vibe and that energy, because the people that wanted to essentially say it wasn't an issue was to kind of close the financial records, don't even worry about it, it's fine. But the other side was, we have to sue, we have to publicize, we have to get down to the bottom of it. And so again, my desire was to kind of move it forward by not airing out the dirty laundry. But what ended up happening was, the board members that didn't want the reconciliation resigned. They ended up going to city council saying how bad the Chamber of Commerce was. My part, I think, was just wanting not to make it so bad. We ended up not really meeting. The board of directors weren't meeting consistently at that time. It was difficult. It was during COVID and all that type of, during that time as well. So it couldn't ultimately move forward because a lot of the board, the San Gabriel Chamber essentially was fiscally, they needed support, like many chambers, not just San Gabriel. But I think that's in part what led to kind of the dissolution. It ended up having no support from city council or support with conditions that were unacceptable to the board. Half of the board had left. Another part of the board were still looking at, we got to take this person out or that person out. How could this happen? I wasn't there when it dissolved because my term was already up. It was close to being up. And I think it dissolved like maybe half a year or a year later. It was
just like this whole money thing too. You weren't involved in any of the money or anything that.
No, I think that's kind of been a statement that's been put on me. To the extent money was involved, it's basically, should we go after this? Should we go after our vendor who happens to be a board member or now an ex-board member? And my answer to this day is no, right? I don't think it's healthy to air out things that most people don't understand. It's going to become a soundbite issue. It's going to embarrass people. Particularly with people that have been on the board for, we're talking about decades now. We're not talking about, kind of a fly-by-night person. I still believe that it was a dark time for the chamber. It's obviously been disbanded. I hope it can come back together again. It was a dark time, in the city of San Gabriel because it became a real political football.
Yes, Yeah. Well, thank you for addressing that. And we talked a long time, which was great. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your story.
Imagine.
I do like that. And I do like the fact that you do really care about the city of Arcadia.
No, that's the song.
Oh!
Not specifically Beatles, right? But
I was going to say, it's John Lennon.
John Lennon.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Now you got me thinking of the Beatles again.
Good.
Okay.
That's all that matters.
One of my favorite songs is Hey Jude. I love that song.
That's a very sweet song,
I
too.
love that song, and Here Comes the Sun. That's probably my most favorite.
That's a very good song, too.
Probably my most favorite is Here Comes the Sun. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
thank you for allowing me to be here.
Oh, you're going to come back. We have other things. I mean, look at this. Look at all these things I wanted to talk to him about. We didn't even get to it. So, thank you so much for listening. I just want to thank our sponsors again. Longo Toyota in El Monte. Longo Toyota Lexus in El Monte. Star 7 Financial Services with Francine Chu. Santa Anita Park. The Le Meridian Hotel in Arcadia and Pasadena. Look to ArcadiaFYI.com. I have some events on there that you can look at that are coming up in the month of September and October. Some really great stuff going on at the Arboretum. Great stuff going on with the city of Arcadia. And until next time, be blessed and make it a great day.